Why are ISIS fighters driving so many similar trucks, and where are they getting them from?
Hillary Clinton has described already the meeting in the White House over 2 years ago. Everyone in the national security team recommended arming ISIS.
You are basically saying that even in government at the time, you knew those groups were around, you saw this analysis, and you were arguing against it. But who wasn't listening?
I think the administration.
But what we're trying to do is help Syrians to fight for their own country. And we've been spending a lot of money, a lot of effort to try to help do this. So there's an opposition there. The opposition is doing very well. And if they're not serious, then we will help the opposition more.
Intelligence officials in Pakistan say a local commander from the terrorist network Islamic State has admitted receiving funds transferred via the U.S. He made the confession while being interrogated.
Today, we learned that the same group may now be in possession of a deadly cache of American-made firepower Stinger missiles.
I think it was a willful decision.
A willful decision to go support an insurgency that had Salafists, Al-Qaeda, and Muslim Brotherhood.
A willful decision to do what they're doing, which you'd have to really ask the president, what is it that he actually is doing?
As I've said before, this aspect of our strategy was moving too slowly, but the fall of Ramadi has galvanized the Iraqi government. So with the additional steps I ordered last month, we're speeding up training of ISIL forces, including volunteers from Sunni tribes in Anbar province.
Now, U.S. military aircraft have dropped ammunition in areas held by ISIL terror group in Iraq. Now, according to volunteer forces who are fighting the terrorists, American helicopters dropped boxes of weapons in Yathrib and Balad districts in the Salahuddin province.
In the last 8 years, Obama completely sold us out to the Communist Chinese, the Saudi Arabians, and others, and launched a program all over the Middle East, Africa, Central Asia, Far Asia, you name it, to put radical jihadis funded by Saudi Arabia as well as NATO in charge. It's now been leaked. Even the New York Times is having to report on it. Obama wanted ISIS to grow, leaked audio, and that's addressing the Syrian opposition. So that's just an example of what we're talking about.
We saw that Daesh was growing in strength, and we thought Assad was threatened. We thought, however, we could probably manage, that Assad might then negotiate. Instead of negotiating, you got Assad. You got Putin to support him.
Now, the public didn't know what was going on, but our military did. They began 5 years ago, and Cy Hirsch has now broken this last year. We first broke it, but he confirmed it all. We had the direct sources from NATO, from the CIA. I mean, from low level and high level, we had it from every angle.
When you cross him, he's going to fight you to the end. It's a war to the end. He's fighting ISIS. He's fighting Al-Qaeda. He's fighting al-Nusra. These are people that hang in Garat. Some of the horrible stuff that happened. He's had as many as 200 of his soldiers executed at one sitting by these people. So our Joint Chiefs decided some years ago on the basis of intelligence reporting that there really wasn't any option, that there really were no moderates. Although the White House keeps on talking about there are moderate groups in the opposition. There were at one time, but they were quickly taken over and cleaned out by the more radical jihadists, people who believe in Sharia law. Some of the groups we advocate as moderate have already made it clear that if they ever took over the government, no Christians or Alawites, that's a minority sect, Shia sect that Bashar Assad and about 12% of the people living in Syria belong to. None of them could be allowed to live in the country. They were talking about genocidal cleaning. After Libya fell, we began to funnel stuff that in an earlier article I called the rat line. A lot of arms from Libya into Turkey, and from Turkey, the gentleman running Turkey, Erdogan, is a total, complete supporter of ISIS. I don't think there's any question of that, even though we deny that. Our intelligence shows it. So what I wrote about is the fact that 2.5 years ago, the Joint Chiefs decided, well, they can't convince the White House and the State Department with intelligence. They're just going to begin to do what they can do.
So the Russians basically came into Syria because the U.S. military said, we're telling Obama if he doesn't back off, we're going to release the fact that we know they've been funding him, giving him missiles, you name it. Benghazi was the last straw. Russia said, okay, we're going to come in. Trump is right. Hillary and Obama are the founders of ISIS. They founded it because it's really Al-Qaeda to confuse the name.
Donald Trump and Alex Jones, the conservative conspiracy theorist and operator of the website InfoWars, which seems to be a place where Trump gets a lot of his information. Obama as the leader of ISIS.
ISIS is honoring President Obama.
So it's very interesting to see both sides of the story here. David Knight joins me now. Very interesting to see how the New York Times, the paper of record, is telling us this story, which really fit right in with the whole narrative of what was going on in Syria. Assad is bad, the U.S. is good, we need to get them out of there, the rebels are good. Completely leaving out the part where the U.S. is now arming and funding these terrorist groups, these so-called moderate rebels, which you were only really hearing about at InfoWars and, Breitbart, sites like this.
That's right. And it was the New York Times that went through and selectively pulled things out of this so-called off-the-record discussion that he was having with people from Syria. But you know what? This is 2017. Things are not going to be off the record, Leanne. We got Julian Assange saying you're going to see a lot more in 2017 from WikiLeaks than you did in 2016. We are going to put them on the record. These people's Machiavellian machinations that they're doing to create unrest, to create regime change, to set the Middle East on fire. This is now being exposed. People are going on the record. They're blowing the whistle on them. One of the reasons I believe that Barack Obama went after journalists and whistleblowers more than all the presidents before him in the last 100 years since they did the Espionage Act of 1917 is because he had so much to hide.
Right.
Because they were doing all this. And when we look at this, and this is a conservative treehouse which went back at this report that was done, and they looked at what was left out by the New York Times. And they said, look, there's some key findings here. Number one, we see that not only did they have the goal of overthrowing Assad, and they were willing to do whatever was necessary to create ISIS, and that's what we've been saying all along. They're willing to create ISIS no matter what the consequences so that they could overthrow Assad. And this goes back several years to the ones that were laid out, that we had these 7 nations that they were going to go through and overthrow these nations. But this is like Madeleine Albright saying when she was asked, was it worth the death of 500,000 kids to achieve this objective, these sanctions that you put against Iraq? Oh, yeah, it was worth it. Mm-hmm. And that's the cold-blooded calculation that they're doing. So as we see this heart-wrenching situation with the Aleppo boy, with all these people who are displaced and now being flooded into Europe, understand this was the deliberate policy of Obama, of Clinton, of Kerry. This is a cold-blooded ruthlessness, the creation of this regime that would create these executions and broadcast them on social media. This was what they wanted, and now this is being exposed.
Right, and of course, what we're being shown here by the establishment media with Aleppo is we're not being shown the people actually celebrating and that they want for things to get back to normal. They're celebrating even President Assad.
Yeah.
Not saying that he's a great guy, but better than all of these different proxy armies coming in, trying to overthrow their government there. These people have been under attack for many years now, and we're only seeing the side of the story that fits the agenda with the current administration.
Well, we've been saying at InfoWars that ISIS was a surrogate of the CIA and of the neocon warmongering establishment. And now what we're seeing also is it's not just the Democrats, but when you look at this conservative treehouse story, they show pictures of McMullen, not just McCain. We know, we talked a great deal about McCain meeting with the al-Qaeda rebels, and they were saying, oh, they're moderates, they're not al-Qaeda, there's something different. No, they are al-Qaeda. They eventually outed themselves as al-Qaeda. But then there were these other characters who became very well known in just the last few months as never-Trumpers, people like McMullen that they tried to use in Utah. They thought it was going to be close. They could block Trump from getting an electoral college majority by using Evan McMullen in Utah. He was there meeting with the rebels just like McCain. And this is something that at InfoWars we talked about in 2013. Remember, we had the soldiers and sailors saying, we're not going to be al-Qaeda's Air Force. Right. They were trying to sell this false narrative that only the Syrian government could have created this sarin gas attack. Therefore, we needed to get involved in the war. Same thing we're seeing now. Only the Russians could have revealed this true information about Hillary Clinton that cost her the election. And so we fought against that. We made that clear. And then, of course, we had international organizations say, no, it didn't have to be Syria. We had Russia saying that. And eventually, U.S. intelligence said the same thing. And now we're seeing that. We've got good people in the military, good people in intelligence coming out, and they're going to put these people on the record and expose what they've done.
Right. And of course, we had Rand Paul and his father, Ron Paul, coming out saying, look where ISIS is getting its weapons from. They've got billions of dollars worth of U.S. Humvees, cash they stole from the U.S. to pay their soldiers. We have the video where there's just a long line of these ISIS soldiers, and we're all thinking, well, if there was ever a time to take them out, that would have been it. How'd you get this footage of them? But now we see.
We can show the footage of that, but we can't do anything to take them out in their Toyota trucks as they're carrying weapons around.
The team has somehow outsmarted us, and then here, lo and behold, they're wanting ISIS to grow, thinking that they're going to be the proxy army of the U.S. to complete their job, their agenda of regime change there in Syria. But that, just like you said, here we are, InfoWars, talking about this in 2013. Very unpopularly, because you have a sarin gas attack, and there's all this footage with these young children, going through the throes of this chemical attack, and we're saying, wait a minute, this is all of the evidence here of a false flag, and so very unpopular at the time, but it was necessary, and frankly, I think it stopped us going to war with Syria officially.
I believe so.
Meanwhile, you have
they're caught parachuting weapons down,
right,
as well as not attacking them. And we had testimony from some news organizations reported that you had a Chechen rebel leader saying, hey, we were fighting the Russians as Islamicists. They told us, hey, the action is over here in Syria. The CIA brought us in. They trained us. They equipped us. We see this over and over again.
Right.
Dropping it down with parachutes or pulling back and giving it to them.
The military would accidentally drop them weapons many times that we are aware of.
That's right.
Here are people without, privy to that kind of information, at least 3 times that we know of. And then, of course, it's hilarious how we have the Washington Post editor speaking out, saying Donald Trump reading InfoWars and then going out and communicating this message to the American people. It could tank markets. It can invite an incursion. It could be catastrophic for the nation.
Hold that there. Invite incursions. What did we do? We invited incursions. They are trying to push a new escalated Cold War and sanctions, and doing it with a fake news story. He was, at the time he was saying that about InfoWars, it was the Washington Post that was pushing this fake story about the cyber hack of the U.S. power grid.
That Russia
totally
has
false.
Right. Talk about catastrophic for the nation. You're putting out fake news that could potentially launch World War III. And get a bunch of people in a panic thinking that the Russians are hacking our grid. The grid's going down. Everyone's going to go hide in their bunker. And that's the difference. They create the fake news that gets millions of people killed, that starts World War III.
And tanks markets.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And, just like you said, Julian Assange has come out once again saying, we've told you again and again and again, it was not the Russians. We did not receive any of this information from the Russians. But he did say, prepare. If you thought 2016 was a big deal, 2017 is going to be a showdown. They say the information coming is going to blow you away. So, you know what? I think that that's really the good news here, is that there's nowhere to hide.